Good evening, everybody. It's Let's Talk, and this evening I'm going to be talking about self-honesty. And the reason I've chosen this as the subject matter for tonight is because at the weekend I was at Mind, Body and Spirit Wellbeing Festival at the NEC. So I got to speak to a lot of people regarding my book and some very interesting conversations about transgender, and were an awful lot of people who, were being very open and honest about the people that they know who are going through a dramatic change, and also about how they're coping or how they're not coping. So that was absolutely fabulous. The other thing I was doing as well was a lifestyle challenge. So this was about looking at people's triggers for anxiety and stress, and then looking at the symptoms from those triggers. And as we were going through the questionnaire and I was starting to ask more general questions, I was really beginning to find that, people did know the answers to the questions. And that is the thing, we do, if we can dig deep, most of the time we do know the answers to the questions. So what was happening was they knew the answers to the questions, but they weren't being totally honest with themselves to be able to start fixing it. And and the way I knew that was because I was hearing the words like but, or well, or maybe, or it's somebody else, or it's not my fault. Those sorts of words that a piece of paper fell on the floor, that indicated that they weren't being totally honest with themselves, and so things aren't going to change. And it's important to be honest, to be able to put your hand on your heart, so that you can learn from the experiences. And I know it can be hard, especially when it's in a tough situation. I've had to learn to do it myself so that I could make changes to the way I felt about myself, the way I felt about the triggers that set my anxiety and stresses off. And I still have to do it now. And it just means that if you can be totally honest with yourself, if you can learn from the experiences and your thoughts and your feelings, then you're in a better position to be able to do something about it. So say for example today, I don't know around by you, but the weather's been absolutely awful here. The traffic, because of that bad weather, has been really, really bad. And there's been a lot of aggressive drivers on the road. I'd like to say that wasn't me. I might have felt angry, but I didn't actually have road rage, thank goodness. But a lot of the road rage is due to people blaming other people for their bad mood, for bad driving, about the traffic being slow. But sometimes we just have to get over ourselves and reflect on what is actually going on. And yes, the weather might be bad, and yes, the traffic is bad because of the bad weather, but it's also about being sensible, isn't it? And, well, I can't go anywhere, so you know what, let's just take a deep breath, listen to what's on the radio, and just bide our time and get there safely. And then hopefully when you have a better realistic view of what's going on, then you can start to take action. And a lot of the time, this is, where we have to take action, I find, is around relationships, and it's around communication. And so hopefully, if it is your fault, you can put your hand up and say, I'm sorry, it was my fault, and explain why you thought it was your fault. And then hopefully that will open up a great discussion to be able to fix whatever needs fixing. The only trouble is with self-honesty, besides all the heartache it can bring to you, because you have to delve deep, you have to, admit that perhaps you were the problem in an argument, which can be very, very hard, because it's very easy to point the finger and blame somebody else. So yes, it can be hard, and especially if it's an ongoing issue over a long period of time, when you have perhaps felt that you have been the victim, and and blaming everybody else for the way you have felt, when in actual fact you might have contributed to that, and bred the thoughts, bred the feelings, and misinterpreted perhaps what other people have been saying to you and their actions. So that is the hard bit. But if you can get over that bit, then when the next set of issues come along, where you've got to put your hand on your heart and you have got to be totally honest with yourself, then it's going to be a whole lot easier, because the sooner that you do it, the less interference from more issues breeding those thoughts. It means that there won't be the escalation of those thoughts and those feelings and those behaviours. And so it's going to be easier to challenge what's going on in here and what's going on in your heart, and it means there's not going to be so much heartache for you. Okay. The only trouble is, when you are perhaps new to being totally self-honest, there is a tendency to overthink. And then the overthinking can create even more problems. But this is a process that you have to learn. You have to get to know yourself. You have to get to know when to stop overthinking. And this is about being realistic about the situation, about you, about your relationships with other people, or the other things that are going on. So, it's about finding your way to do it. Okay, so to start with, it might be about writing things down. So you're just downloading it out of your head and out of your heart, so that you can see it in black and white. Okay, and try and work out, what are the actual feelings that you're feeling? What are the actual thoughts? Why are you thinking that? What has triggered that? And this is about being realistic. And then, is it absolutely true that, the reason that you're thinking, the reason why you're thinking that, okay? Because, like I say, we can take everything out of proportion. So it's also about stepping outside of the situation, looking in on it from a different angle, from a different viewpoint, so you can see it with a fresh eye. Okay, and it'd be rather like watching a film and trying to work out the storyline, and trying to find the end of the sort of complex story before it actually gets there. So like a murder mystery type thing. So yeah, it's about step outside of the box, step outside of the situation, and see it from a different viewpoint. Try and see it from the other person's viewpoint as well. Someone, you reacted like that to somebody else, how do you think they would feel? Or the other way around, how do you think you would feel if somebody talked to you or reacted the way they did to you? Okay, and that will give you a really good sense of where you are at with your thoughts, feelings and behaviours with that situation. So, don't overthink it, be realistic, but really learn from the situation, because every time you practice this self-honesty, you're going to be learning all of the time. Okay, you're going to be getting to know yourself even better, know when to perhaps hold back and not say something, or when to rephrase so that, you know, you don't hurt somebody's feelings or do something out of perhaps the ordinary that isn't expected, so that you are more consistent. The difficult bit comes, of course, when we are under due, you know, extra pressure or extra stress because of what else is going on in your life, which will, you know, often create a lot of tiredness, and tiredness will breed irritability, and that is when you have to really have a firm check on yourself to make sure that you're not saying or doing something that you know, could offend somebody, and then you're going to have to go through the whole process of the self-honesty, and then, yes, sorry, I'm to blame, you know, which is just going to create you know, could create a nasty atmosphere between you and somebody else. But I mean, this just isn't about you and somebody else. This is about perhaps, you know, your career or your own business, or, you know, what's going on in the house. So, you know, it's about being aware of yourself, aware of other people, aware of, you know, everything that is going on around you, so that you're in a better position to be able to keep the balance. Not, I say keep the peace, but not so that your boundaries are broken, so that, you know, other people don't overstep your boundaries. But it's sometimes, you know, we do have to be flexible. You know, we do have to, you know, take ourselves a little bit further into trying to understand other people's situations, because sometimes we can't understand why other people behave the way they do, but then often that is because of, you know, their anxieties and stresses, the things that have triggered their exceptional thoughts, emotions and behaviours, and maybe they have reacted in a strange or unfamiliar way because of the pressures that they're under. So this is about, you know, trying to sort of see things from another person's point of view, and appreciate that we're not all going to be working on a balance. We're not all going to be working on the same balance, and we're all going to have off days. So, self-honesty, take some time to practice it, but, you know, always reflect, always learn from it, so that you can start to make action to fix whatever hasn't worked or isn't working, so that it will work a lot better. But be aware, try not to overthink it, be realistic about it, but also be kind to yourself as well. So, on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I will speak to you again next Wednesday at 8 o'clock here live on Facebook. Good night.